everyone, welcome to SchoolQuizz. So this side Anjali Singh, and again I am back with the second chapter of physics of class 9, that is the forces and laws of motion. So in the first video of this chapter we completed that what are the forces, what is force and what are the effect of force. So uh, I want to give you a quick revision of first video, that is the force. It means the pull or push of an object. Definitely the basic definition of this force is that only. Now, pull or push, you can experience pull or push in any side, okay, in any area. You can say in every day-to-day activity of your life, like pushing of a door, pulling of a cart, yeah, like pushing of a bed, or anything. It's an basic example. Now, force, the first thing, you cannot see a force. Only what? You can experience a force. Okay. So I think about 5 effect of force I saw, like force can change the speed of an object, force can change the direction of an object, force can change the mass of an object. Okay. I think like that. Okay. Force can change the speed as well as, the velocity, like that. 5 effect we saw in the first video. Now, in this video, I'll tell you the forces and the laws of motion. I'll introduce you about the laws of motion. So let's start this video by the sharing, okay, slides. So now you can see, yeah, again, one example, like the speed of a falling object. You can see here, this time I am not using a pen tab because I don't think only theoretical part is there. So the speed of a falling ball, okay, or any falling object increases because the earth applies a pulling force on it, which is called the force of gravity. So students, here another force is introduced that is exerted by the earth. Okay, so that is the force of gravity. Here the earth is also exerting a force. Suppose we apply a force on an object. It means for that object, our force is greater than the force of gravity for a little bit time, because force of gravity is larger across a larger place. Okay, so for a particular time, our force is greater than the force of gravity, and up to a point, our force will be zero. Like suppose I throw a ball, like I'll throw this pen. Okay, so I applied a force on this pen and this pen will go up. So like up to this point, my force will be zero. When my force will be zero, that time the force of gravity start exerting. Actually, it is exerting when I am exerting the force also, but you can see the you can see the larger effect of force of gravity. Okay, when my force become decreasing and up to zero, that time the force of gravity will be greater and greater. So here the force of gravity will be acting on an object. Now the force of gravity means the force exerted by the earth on this object, and the force of gravity is always a pulling force. Okay, it is always a attracting force. It always pulls an object toward the earth. Clear? It always pulls an object towards the earth. Clear? Now here, yeah, it's the force of gravity of the earth which pulls a falling object toward the center, and it increases its speed. Okay, because of force of gravity, the object fastly come to the earth. Okay, fastly come to the earth, and it always attracting an object toward the center. Clear? Now, like in a tennis match, you can see, now I'm reading Okay, in a tennis match, when a moving tennis ball is hit by a racket, then the direction of the tennis ball changes and it goes in different direction. Okay, now the player is hitting the tennis ball and it is moving in a different direction. So in that case, the force exerted by the tennis player racket changes the direction of the moving tennis ball. Clear? So this is the example of exerting a force on an object, and with the effect of force, this object changes its direction. Okay. Now, at last here it is written, a force can change the direction of the motion of the moving object. The conclusion of this whole example is force is able to change the direction of the moving object. Now, yes. Yeah. This is a funny game. I think everyone played this. Okay, original shape of the spring. Spring, I think you saw in a pen, in a jetter pen. I think the spring is there because I also played with the spring. That is why I'm saying this spring. The original shape of the spring is like that. But when you'll apply the force, this is always a pulling force. This is always a pulling force from the end of this object. End of this object. So it changes the shape and the size of the spring. Clear? It always changes the shape and the size of the spring. So means force can change the shape and size of the object. I explained you, but here examples are given, basic example or daily life example. Again, now we can define the force is an influence which tends to set a stationary object in a moving or stop a moving object. Means with the help of object, we can stop a moving object or, or the stationary object can move also with the help of only force. That is the external force. That is the external force acting on a body, and with the help of this force, a stationary object can move also, and a moving object can be stop also. Clear? So it tends to change the shape and size of a body. Clear? Now, another that is the balance and unbalanced force. I think with the name, the topic is clear to you. Balance force. So, what is this balance force? Balance force is actually, yes, balance force is actually the object will not move in case of balance force. Firstly, I want to say, and here the net force is zero. Net force means the total value of force. Here the meaning of net force is total value of force is zero. If the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is zero, the forces are called the balance force. Here the result, you can see this heavy box, it is not moving. Okay, downside, which force is acting? You can see here the downside, force of gravity. The force of gravity is acting, and upside, force of reaction. That I'll explain you later, but please keep in mind the reaction force and the gravity. The reaction force and the force of gravity, they both are exerting in opposite direction. They both are exerting in opposite direction, and they both are equal when an object is not moving. Okay, in that case only, when the object is not moving, the force of gravity as well as the force of reaction is always equal. Now, again, here the force is acting in all the direction. Now, east and west direction, the force of friction. Okay, here the force of friction is acting from one side, and the force of our push in another side. So when they both are equal, when they both are equal, this heavy box does not move. I think in your houses, like like one big box is there, like the divan. Okay, yeah, king size bed. It is moving. No, why? Because the force of friction and the force of our push is always equal. And suppose like your father, like your big brother, or even who is elder. So when they are applying force, this king size bed started moving. Why? Because that time the force of R push is greater than the force of friction. Clear? The force of R push is greater than the force of friction. Clear? Here, suppose a heavy box is lying on the ground. Let us push this box with our hands. We find that box does not move. Okay, it remains as the rest. Why? Because force of R push, force of friction, and you know that force of friction is known as opposing force. It opposes the moving of an object. Okay, force of friction is a opposing force. Clear? Force of friction is an opposing force because it resists the movement, or you can say the motion of a body. And the third force is that is the force of gravity, which pulls the object downward. Okay, that I think you'll understood in case of upthrust or buoyancy. I'll explain you later. It is not in this chapter, or maybe in the last of this chapter, like that. Okay, so force of gravity is always pulling an object in downward direction, and the force of reaction is always acting in upward direction, and that is the opposite of force of gravity. So this diagram is exactly showing about the forces and how these forces act on an object. Clear? So here you can see now the number of balance force. I'm reading only the black dot, black bold part, bold letter, because the rest of the writing part I am explaining you orally. Okay, so number of the balance force act on a stationary body. The body continue to remain in its stationary position. Okay, because the balance force is acting. All these four forces are balanced, means they both are like this force and this force balance each other. Like force of friction and the force of R push is balance. Force of reaction and the force of gravity, they both are balancing each other. So that is why it is known as balance force. In this condition, these all forces are balanced. Okay, the number of balance force act on a body in uniform motion. The body continue to be in state of uniform motion. Okay, the last case, what here, the if a number of balance force act on a body in uniform motion, suppose the box is in uniform motion. Okay, it means again all the force is in balance condition. That is why it is attaining uniform motion. You already know what is the uniform motion, means the motion where it travels equal distance in equal interval of time. Clear? So here in this situation also, this shows the balance force. Clear? Now I am moving. Yeah, you can see in a tug of war. This is the best example. I think everyone played in your school or played in your playground also. So in a tug of war, these two parties or two teams are pulling the rope. But at a point, the rope is stationary. They both are pulling. It means equal forces acting. But after a time, like this team is acting more force. So the rope will go to that side. Or suppose this team is acting more force on the rope. So this rope will go that side. Okay. So here, this is the example of balance force. Like a balloon is pressing between the hands. Then balance force means equal and opposite force. If anyone asks you about the balance force, so you will say here, force is equal as well as opposite in an object. Clear? So here the shape of the balloon changes. Okay, because here the balance force is acting, okay, between the two hands. Equal force is acting by one of its hands. Clear? I think about the balance force, you are clear. Okay. Now, yeah, pressing a rubber ball or a balloon. These are the example of balance force. So in the that is, I think that is enough for this video. In next video, I'll explain you about the unbalanced force. So please revise this balance force and explore more example related to the balance force. Okay, students. So thank you. Stay healthy and stay safe.